thoroughly and utterly reject. So I want to put that to bed right now. There is no apartheid as a result of this decision. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ferry. Could I have Councillor Bartley, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm speaking in support of this, of Councillor Filipaina and Councillor Foley and what they have raised. I support it, and I've read the emails that are asking us, we are speaking, are you listening? I am listening, we're all listening, because we're here to work for everybody. I'm listening, I'm reading where you're saying that if we support Māori seats at this table, we're supporting civil disharmony, we're supporting race-based system, apartheid, adding another layer of bureaucracy, we're appeasing only 12% of the population, we're encouraging double dipping, dictatorial tribalism, making Auckland become a backwater of Pacific people. What else are they saying? That there's already mechanisms there. And, you know, those are not easy things to read, especially when you don't look like the majority. When I got voted in, people said, I hope she works for everyone, not just her own kind. In my mind, my own kind is humans. So I wasn't quite sure what they meant by that. But around this table, you're elected to work and represent everybody. So even though there's councillors here of Māori descent, like Councillor Filipaina, Councillor Leone, Councillor Hills, possibly Councillor Williamson, you are not here as, you know, you're not the voice of Māori. Māori don't have a voice at this table, as you can all see and as was explained by previous councillors. I support Māori seats because it's respecting tangata whenua. I don't have any particular words around the treaty, but it's acknowledging the people of this land by having a seat at the table. That's the real difference you can make, is the power, being in power, being at the decision-making table. Our Auckland plan talks about a thriving Māori identity is Auckland's point of difference in the world. And how do we even show that? Yes, we may have Māori designs on buildings, we do iwi engagement, we have a pōwhiri, we have a karakia. All that is token if you don't have their representation at the decision-making level of a city. So I support this. I support, doing what I believe is right. I know people, you know, say, don't let emotion get into it. I'm fully emotional about this. It's just so sad that people feel like something is being taken away from them. You know, we are not in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s anymore, where you just have a token person as an advisory panel or, you know, city. It's just not that. Even though our infrastructure is from the 1950s and 60s, the people have changed in the city. The city is changing. So I don't see this as a taking away of anything. I see it as doing what is right. And I also take umbrage at that presenter when he talked about, people are only a bit Māori or a bit this or a bit that. It's nobody's business how you identify to your ethnic makeup. If you are 1% Māori, whatever, you are Māori. It's nobody's business to tell you that you are not. So I support this. I think it's the right thing to do. I don't want to be hearing my nieces and nephews my niece and nephew who are Māori. I don't want them when they're grown up to say, Auntie, you were sitting at that table. Why didn't you support Māori seats? So I am voting to support this, and I hope we don't kick it down the can because it's a long time coming. There's been so much about this. And I don't say to anybody, if you support Māori seats, you should support this. It's just, for me, I support Māori seats, and this is how I'm going to vote in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley. Could I have Councillor Newman, please?
Where were these speeches 4 years ago when John Tamaheri stood to be Mayor of Auckland? Where were these speeches at that time? Why, the platform was there to elect a Māori Mayor of Auckland, and I didn't hear these speeches back then. 4 years later, we're hearing these speeches. The platform has been provided in the past. The truth of Your Worship is that some people want to back change on conditional terms, and that's okay. We accept that, but I accept the speeches that we're hearing today, but I think that they are 4 years too late. I am elected with a mandate to be the councillor for the Manaroa Papakura ward, representing my constituents, all of them. If you don't like that, well, you take it up with them, because ultimately they are the people who will determine the value of my advocacy. They get a ballot with my name on it, with the names of other people, and they will decide. Councillor Filipaina, I don't support the parliamentary model full stop. I've expressed that view to David Taipari, to Rangi McLean, to Anne Candy, to others, and the reason for that is that I only consider this issue in terms of a mechanism for mana whenua representation. That's my concern. That's what I believe needs to be addressed. The parliamentary model provides no mechanism for that. You might fluke it, but the reality is that if you were to have an intervention to ensure representation for me, it would be about mana whenua representation. So I actually find myself agreeing in part with the Royal Commission, but only so far as it provides for a mechanism for mana whenua, not the parliamentary model. And that's an important distinction. It probably satisfies nobody in this debate, but it is how I feel. I accept that. I've read the emails. I have reflected on the feedback, strongly held views, not a surprise. This is a rather binary debate. It encourages people to give strong. I thought that the timing of this was atrocious, predictable and atrocious. To take a consultation like this into what was in effect a general election campaign was always going to be a recipe for very visceral division in relation to how people judge this matter. The truth of the matter is, Your Worship, I am very proud of the work that I have done through the years to support Māori to be elected to public office. I want a Rangi McLean here around this council table. And if you don't like the nature representation around this table, well, here's an idea: resign your seat and make way for someone else. Hold the applause, you won't like the balance. Look, the truth of the matter is, Your Worship, is that unfortunately there is a tyranny of majority and it is tough. I'm sorry that Rangi was not elected. I'm hopeful for Matt Waniata and others in the future. I think there's good progress to be made. But there's another point, Your Worship, and this is an important point. Respectfully, the legislation that enables this was passed under urgency in August this year, days before the dissolution of the Parliament. And the government that passed that enabling legislation was very heavily defeated, and we will almost certainly see, I know because I've been asked about what is the timing for representation review, we will see advice as to what the newly elected government, to be constituted very shortly, will do in relation to the Local Electoral Act. And I don't want to be, as a creature, local government is a creature of statute. And I don't want to be in a situation whereby we are acting at variance with what that legislation is going to say. I have a fair idea of what that might say. I think people do. It hasn't been declared today because the reality is that we have to operate on the basis of what was pushed through in August, days before a general election. Finally, Your Worship, I have to say that I accept for you, this is a very tough position for you to be in, but the deferral option, which I will support if this amendment is not successful really needs to be informed not so much by a whole lot of work from the Joint Governance Working Party next year. As soon as you get advice from government, that needs to be reported back, because I think that could clarify things quickly so that we can get on with that representation review. Maybe there's an opportunity for us to do what was envisaged by the Royal Commission. I would welcome that, at least in part. But I won't be supporting your amendment, Councillor Filipaina. I will be held to account by my electors in my ward, and I'm very comfortable with the feedback that I've received to date in relation to the matters that I have reflected today. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Newman. Could I have Councillor Watson, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to everyone for their contributions today. There's a lot of very compelling arguments and points being put up. I just wanted to start, Mr. Mayor, by just setting this issue in context, and Councillor Fletcher alluded to it, but like a lot of things around this place, we sometimes stumble on to the next step without looking at what's wrong with the starting line, and the starting line undoubtedly was a super city structure that was set up. Terry Dunleavy, who was a National Party man, he referred to the whole super city structure as a mangled monstrosity on our largest metropolis. A little more eloquently, Professor Ian Shirley, who is a Pro-Vice-Chancellor of AUT University, said of the super city structure, including Maori representation, it ignores history, fails to connect in any meaningful way with the diverse populations and neighbourhoods of the region, and has established a corporate framework and process that will not gain the trust of ratepayers. Obviously hasn't gained the trust of Maori, and I'd say that Maori aren't much different from lots of other communities around Auckland. Having said that, there has been no attempt to address a number of the structural shortcomings of this place, and we just keep stumbling on, and this is another example of it today. Having said that, we have gone out for consultation on Maori seats, and I guess having paid 170 grand or whatever it was for public consultation, we should at least take note of it. And the report does set out in some detail what that feedback was, even though, like all reports, you can pick and choose a bit, but I've certainly chosen the things that have stood out for me. And the first one was really the engagement last year with Mana Whenua and Matawaka, where the feedback was that neither the parliamentary nor the Royal Commission model was suitable, and that a bespoke model is required for Auckland Council, and I'd actually agree with that. The conversation was to continue. In terms of this particular round of consultation, from feedback from Maori, what really surprised me was the large number of individual Maori, 45%, who did not support this proposal. That seemed to me to be quite a high statistic. Amongst the balance of the wider public, it was a lot more significant again of the individual responses. 68%, nearly 70%, did not support introducing Maori seats for the elections. So that was quite strong feedback, and I do acknowledge that the tyranny of the majority, where you can be at disadvantage if you're a group within a bigger group, but that was quite convincing. From that consultation process, one of the things that was picked up on was the role of the IMSB, and I know we've tried to be steered away from that, but for me it's fundamental, and my position on this has been pretty clear. Councillor Filipaina is absolutely right. There has been a succession of votes endorsing Maori seats. In all of those votes, I've maintained this position, is that you have to deal with the issue of the IMSB. It's there, you just can't ignore it. 9 members, 2 board members sit with full voting rights on each of the council committees. In any of the consultation material that went out, there was no reference to voting rights. To me, that's absolutely fundamental to representation, participation, use any word you like. If you have a vote at the table, you are representing. That's all we have. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, in a few minutes, we're going to have a vote. That's it. The IMSB does have a vote. They have They are controlled by Section 82 of that Auckland Council Act. The board is independent. It's not required to accept direction from any person. And the purpose of the board is to ensure council acts in accordance with the statutory provisions of the Treaty of Waitangi, and certainly the IMSB members do that. Admittedly, there is that glaring anomaly. I think someone referred to it being a little bit insulting of being left out of the governing body. I would agree with that. That seems to me to be an anomaly that should and could have been addressed in the years prior, and I'm not quite sure why that will have happened. But I guess my point is we have a body, 9 people, have our own secretariat, own offices, entirely independent, who have a vote on all manner of issues, any decision making. So to me, in my rather perhaps simplistic view of things, if you're talking about that bespoke model that was referred to by the mana whenua feedback, you have to deal with that situation, or you just can't pretend it doesn't exist. Otherwise, you're in a position of adding, as some of the submitters said, another layer to this model, to this mangled monstrosity, as Mr. Dunleavy said. It just adds to that. So just finally, Mr. Mayor, I'm aware of the old North American Indian proverb, to understand the man or the woman, you must first walk a mile in his moccasin. And I'll be the first to say I don't necessarily understand all of that. But what I do understand is what the consultation has said, and the existence of a body that is representative, that is participatory, and you have to deal with that if you want to get that bespoke model that was signalled right at the start. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Could I have Councillor Mike Lee, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to thank my colleagues for their contributions to this very important debate. It's a difficult debate, but we need to be frank because this is a critical issue for the people of Auckland and for the people of New Zealand right now. One of my colleagues did enjoin us to listen to the people, and I fully agree with that. And in particular, if this council, as it often does, engages in an expensive consultation program, usually called Have Your Say, it's very important that we listen when people have their say. And we ask the people of Auckland to have their say, and they have, and it behoves us to listen very carefully what their preference is. And we have a clear majority, seeing we ask them, we have a clear majority of people who say that they do not want to proceed down the avenue of separate Māori seats at this point in time, and they have good reasons, I believe. I came into local politics, regional politics in 1992 in a by-election, and for what was called Auckland Central, for the ARC. The ARC at that time in its history was structurally and politically still the ARA with 28 members, and had since 1986, in the first round of local government reforms by the Labour Minister of Local Government, the Honourable Dr. Michael Bassett, was based on the parliamentary model. All the seats were based on the pre-MMP parliamentary model. My seat I stood for in the by-election was Auckland Central. The reason why there was a by-election was that the incumbent member had resigned. The term had gone on for 4 years, and the government of the day had made it very clear that it was going to chop the ARC into fairly small pieces. So that person resigned. That person was Hiwi Tauroa, who was a famous rugby coach for counties, and also for a time the race relations conciliator. He stood for national in a red-hot Labour seat, and the people in my electorate, including myself actually, voted for him. And then he stood down and I came in. Had he not stood down, probably I would never have gone into politics because I wasn't involved in the conventional political structures at that time. However, not long after I was elected, apart from joining Bruce Jesson in a notice of motion to stop the sale of the ports of Auckland, which was carried by 1 vote, encouraged by my success, I put out a notice of motion to retain the Maori seats. There were 2 Maori seats in the ARC at the time. There was Northern Maori and there was Western Maori. Northern Maori, the member for Northern Maori was Waireti Norman, who would be described nowadays as Mata Waka, in the old days, Ngā Hau e Whā. And the member for Western Maori was Taho Cooper, tangata whenua, and that's the way Maori voters wanted it. 12 or 13 years later, I became chairman of the ARC, and 6 years later, the government of the day decided to completely disappear the Auckland Regional Council, and in the Royal Commission, the ARC argued for elected Maori seats, and that's my actual preference today, though obviously the world has changed, and in particular in Auckland local government, the advent, for better or worse, of the Independent Maori Statutory Board, 9 members, as Councillor Simpson has pointed out, who are represented on every committee, every working party, every ad hoc body that this council comes up with, but not the governing body. However, we have to respect democracy. If you look at the practicalities of having the IMSB, the 9 members, plus elected Maori members, how that would work raises all sorts of problems, and that is why I think the distinct lack of not the overwhelming majority of support for this change from Maori voters, who you would think would be overwhelmingly in support of it. They have not been, but what has become very clear from the Maori point of view is that essentially what the Mayor has got up there in his resolution for further discussions about Maori representation in Auckland, and I agree with that. We have to listen to the public. The public have made their feelings very clear in all sorts of electorates. Looking at the last election, there was a strong message, not just in national seats, but in Labour seats, that people were not happy, that people were disappointed, in fact, that the fine words and the atmosphere of disunity was disturbing for them. I think what we have to recognise here, Mr Mayor, is that the people in Auckland, whether they be Māori or Pākehā, whether they be Asian or anyone else, broadly are the same in their views.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you
very much. I'd like to have Councillor Turner, who's online. Are you out there, Councillor Turner?
Thank you to everybody. I've listened and learned a lot. I've only been elected for 12 months. I was elected to do a job as a councillor, to support everybody and speak for all the people and engage with them. Anyone who engages with me, I engage back. We're not kicking the can down the road as far as I'm concerned. I've only been here 12 months. One of the reasons I'm here is people put me here because they weren't happy with some of the decisions in the past. So I'm not talking about kicking the can down the road. I'm talking about doing my job properly. I support Maori ward seats, but I do not support Independent Maori Statutory Board at the same time. My reasons are twofold. I believe both would deliver an overrepresentation of mana whenua and an underrepresentation of Mata Waka. I have spoken to Maori, I have engaged, I have written to several groups. I have let them know what my opinions are and asked for their feedback. Only one group has fed back to me, but no one has challenged that that Maori ward seats will fix these issues that we have. And if there was a Maori ward seat, I would be getting pressured the next day to support their vote, or getting pressure somewhere else not to support their vote, just has been happening to me over the last few weeks. Mr. Mayor, we want to fix Auckland, not fiddle with it. And we've got 160 councillors of elected people. We've got too many. I don't want to add anybody to it. I have no problem with Maori being part of a decent structure, but we need, like we've talked about many times before, a complete restructure, which brings less bureaucracy. And so I will not be supporting this amendment, and I will be supporting yours. I think we need to go, lacking the ability to eloquently present what I think Councillor Christine Fletcher represents my thinking the most poignantly, and so I won't be voting for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Darby, please.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, there's been quite a lot of information coming through the electronic means of recent, entertaining, informing, and some of which I've parked in the archives as being worthy of a reminder of some of the vitriol and divisiveness that I've witnessed on this item, unfortunately. The one suggesting Māori need to be DNA tested, I will definitely be keeping as a reminder of that. But I'm not consumed with all that, interpretations, versions of the treaty and the semantics of te tiriti. That would only spiral me too into a miserable life and avoid my responsibility to make a really informed decision, and a decision that's informed by 182 years of te tiriti, I think it is now. One thing I'm really clear on in terms of that treaty is, as I think it was Councillor Ferry gave us a brief synopsis, it did cede sovereignty, and the Crown assured certain rights. And they conferred those rights on Māori, and they were very clear. And in my mind, those rights are unshakable, absolutely unshakable. And you can shake at it with every stick you've got, but they are implicit, and shared governance responsibility is implicit in those rights. You can dissect it any way you like. The partnership and shared governance was absolutely locked into that treaty. So Māori have that unique status, and it's enshrined in that document, including the right to govern over the lands and treasures as they determine. You're going to like it or lump it. It is. So shared governance seems to scare the pants off some people, not me, but I can understand that fear in many ways too. I can understand fear when there's a reluctance to go much further than picking at the scab, looking at what caused the wound, and there's a big backstory there. And I don't think I need to go into that backstory right now, but there is a long, long period of wounding. For me, I'm not remotely fearful. Quite the contrary, I'm very willing, and there's no perfect representative democracy, and I think every day at our jobs we should be willing to improve, to tweak, to add value to that democracy. And I view that the introduction of Māori wards is definitely a way to add value to that democratic process. And it'll only improve our democracy overall. The Māori wards across the motu have become somewhat of a norm. We're the laggards. This big city of Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, a third of the population and contributing to this nation, is behind, well behind. And it's a great shame, because most urban Māori are living here, right in our midst, and we have a responsibility to see them represented better. There's many ways to look at this, of course. The introduction of Māori wards would create that real genuine partnership with Māori that is enshrined in the treaty. It's only going to improve that democracy. There are these examples right throughout the land now that I mentioned earlier in questioning of the staff over rivers, maunga, coastal areas, local councils, regional authorities. I've never heard an issue raised with I've only heard of the success of those shared governance responsibilities. I had the absolute privilege of being on a treaty settlement established shared governance entity, being our own Tupuna Maunga Authority, for 3 years. In 3 years, there was never a vote by division. There was always agreement by consensus. We approached it the Māori way rather than the Pākehā way. And never, ever was there a point in a decision where there was one member left behind. Every member joined in the decision making and giving assent to that direction of the Tupuna Maunga Authority. The Tupuna Maunga Authority inherited degraded maunga. Maunga, I'm embarrassed to now recognise as absolute discards of the former councils. They are cultural landscapes, just not mounds on the horizon. So, Mayor, I'm not afraid. I'm open arms to this change. I fully embrace Māori representation through the introduction of Māori wards. And I'm going to leave you with these words. These words: we all stand to benefit from relationships which share responsibility. I will continue to talk about co-governance as something to be embraced, not feared. And some people will not like it. Bad luck. They're not my words. They're the words of the Honourable Chris Finlayson. And if you want to come up to pace on Māori issues from a Conservative politician, take a read of Chris Finlayson. I do admire the man. I admire his period as Minister of Treaty Settlements for a very long period under a former national government. Let's take his lead.
Thank you very much, Councillor Darby. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. I won't be supporting the amendment of Councillor Filipaina and Councillor Foley, and I think deferring it is probably the only way to go. One of the things that I know that you, Mayor Wayne Brown, are wanting to do is you're wanting to have a discussion on reducing the number of councillors in the city and the local boards, and until we've actually done that, I think we would be very foolish to be voting to have Māori wards when we don't even know how many council wards we'll have and local boards. So I'll be supporting your recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Councillor Walker, please.
Sure. Like Councillor Stewart, I won't be supporting the amendment. When I look at the evidence that I've got before me, there's an overwhelming tide of opposition to Māori wards. It's overwhelming, and that is incontrovertible. So these are the people of Auckland that are speaking to us. So we've had this, we've had a very recent election where I would suggest that issues around this context were part of people's voting choices. And we had local body elections coming up to, around a year ago. So the people continue to speak, and our role should be to listen to them. And we're a lot different. We exist, or this council exists in perpetual succession, so it's going to be around in a long time. And it's really important that we get things right and we take people with us. And there's a larger context around Western democracies that we're seeing worldwide, and we're part of that. So people are vitally concerned about fairness. They're concerned about democracy, one person, one vote. they're vitally concerned around accountability, and these sorts of things are playing out everywhere because there are parts of the planet where those things are not the case, and you've got, in the worst case, autocracies. So there's this tide that people out there, the general public, are aware of. They're aware of it internationally, and they also recognise it's important locally. And like my fellow councillor, Councillor Watson, I have a huge concern around the IMSB and the fact that they're not responsible, they're not accountable to anyone, yet they do have the authority. And fundamentally, that is unfair. And I think that if more Aucklanders were aware of that, which they are not sufficiently aware of because this process did not adequately inform them, then they'd be even more concerned. So, Mr. Mayor, I agree with your amendment. I think it's quite fair and appropriate and democratic to defer this item. We're going to have a new government, and I'm sure that that will put a different complexion on things, and it would be wrong of us to second guess that process, and that needs to play out. So I'll be voting against the amendment that's up there, and I'll be voting for the motion that the Mayor is putting forward.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Baker, please.
Thank you, Worship, and I'm probably getting towards the end. I was feeling like I'm the last one standing, unless Greg's online, and so I'm probably getting close to being the one between us and lunch, and I probably enjoy lunch more than most. Look, I've been sitting here since the start of Auckland Council as a spectator a lot of the times, and in this last year sitting here, and I just want to commend, I guess, the quality of the debate and the things that have been said, and from every perspective. And because I found it really, really helpful, I found it insightful, I found it impassioned, and that's awesome. I don't think there's a single person here who is fearful of making a decision. I don't think there's a person here who is fears the establishment of Māori seats. But what we've heard time and time again from people in this term is that they want us to do things correctly. They want us to stop making decisions in the way that we have made decisions over the years. It has been a clear message. And so I commend the Mayor's sort of resolution on the fact that it allows us to do some more work. It doesn't say we are not going to have Māori seats. It says we are going to do more work and we are going to get the best possible outcome for Aucklanders. And I applaud that. And so I won't be rushed. I won't be supporting the amendment, and I will be supporting, and as a member of the Joint Working Party, I will be in looking forward to diving into some more detail so that we can do something right and we can do it well. I've always lived by the do it once, do it well, and I believe this is the way we should be doing it. And I'm very mindful of looking at my ward, 80%, we were the 8th highest number of submissions came from Franklin. 80% were opposed to the prospect. So I'm mindful of that, but I'm also mindful of the fact we need to do the right stuff, and I agree with so much of what's been said on both sides of the argument today.
Okay, that seems like everybody's had a crack at it. On that basis, I think it's time. I presume you'll want a division for this.
I've also got a point of order, Chair. I've also got a point of order, if that's okay. And the point of order is in relation to 1.4.2, and it's B, which is an explanation of previous speeches that have been done. It's understanding orders if you have a look at it. I just wanted to, I'm not going to introduce, Your Worship, there have been a few councillors here that have said things, and all I'm going to do is point out what they've already said. So it's 1.4.2B, bracket B, is the standing order, and I promise, because I'm like Andy, Councillor Baker, I need to have my lunch, but I promise it'll be kept under 1 minute. So it has to be with your permission, Chair.
That's okay.
Thank you.
1 minute.
Chair, thank you, Chair. Look, all I want to do, and I'll push start. All I want to do, and Councillor Baker's going to look at it, I just want to point out, and I've heard this, the kōrero. Te whānau Waipareira Huakina Development, Manurewa Marae, Rua Pōtaka Marae, Te Puna Hauhora, Te Hā Oranga, Manukau Urban Māori Authority, Te Akatai Waiuhua, Hoane Waititi. Just want to let you know that they support the parliamentary model because the Royal Commission model cannot. There are 269 over 269 mātā waka in Tāmaki Makaurau, mana whenua, 27,500. I just want to point those out. Those are the numbers we're talking about, not the numbers. And I've got 14 seconds, so thank you, Chair. Kia ora.
Thank you very much. I'd like to compliment everybody on the disciplined way we have dealt with this, which is quite a difficult debate. I'm now going to ask Sandra to carry out this by division, because if I don't ask her, you'll ask me to ask her. So Sandra will carry out the vote by division, please, and I'm handing this over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Baker.
No.
Councillor Bartley.
For.
Councillor Dalton.
For.
Councillor Darby.
For.
Councillor Ferry.
For.
Councillor Filipina.
Aye.
Councillor Fletcher.
No.
Councillor Foley.
For.
Councillor Henderson.
Aye, tō te oko.
Councillor Hills.
Aye, thank you.
Councillor Lee.
No.
Councillor Leone.
Aye.
Councillor Newman.
No.
Councillor Sayers.
Against.
Deputy Mayor Simpson. Councillor Stewart. Councillor Turner.
Against.
Councillor Walker.
Against?
Councillor Watson.
No.
Councillor Williamson.
Against.
Mayor Brown.
I'm going to abstain. I might explain that, but I stood to fix Auckland, and this is not one of my 5 big things. And it seems to me to be terribly even-handed, and I feel very uncomfortable about doing something which is a constitutional requirement of the government.
So that's lost 9 votes to 11 with 1 abstention.
Okay, the result is 9 votes to 11 against that. So we'll now move to the substantive first one. I don't know if there's any need for any more discussion and rules, but some people want to. I'm not going to prevent more debate, but we'll just give me a second to reset my page, if that's all right. Councillors Filipina, Henderson and Ferry, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. What we've just done is kick the can down the road. 2017, one of my colleagues ended up mentioning, where were you 4 years ago? Where were you 4 years ago? Well, guess what? I was here 4 years ago. And guess what? I was also fighting for Māori seats all the way through since 2010. Even when I ended up in Manukau City Council in 2003, I have been fighting for Māori representation because I do not, nor do you, around this table. You don't have the mandate to talk for Māori. You can talk for your ward. You can also represent, but you can't speak for Māori. The Honourable Nanaia Mahuta, I mihi to you, and hopefully you're watching Nanaia, because one, when you took away that referendum, around a binding referendum, that was the best thing, and I had a few drinks after that, because that ended up knowing that that's exactly what was going to happen at Tāmaki Makaurau when this came up. Also, not only with that, but also the changes. The 20 councillors, the numbers, we got that changed as well. When I say we, the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta, and then lately, just as it went through, was the Honourable Kieran McAnulty. That has gone through. And I can, sorry, Councillor Williamson, I have never spoken when you have. Oh, well, somebody did. So it was, okay. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Williamson. Just looked over there. Thank you. So, yeah, no, all I knew was over there somewhere. So, look, for me, it's a bad day for Māori, I can tell you now. It's a bad day for Māori because we still have the opportunity to end up talking to the incoming government. We have that opportunity. Councillor Fletcher mentioned, oh, look, I'd rather wait. And I know, Councillor Fletcher, that you have been here the same time. And I know you have been supporting and advocating for Māori seats. That could have still been done with His Worship the Mayor, even yourself, talking to the incoming government. But we've missed that opportunity. So as my late mother, who's buried up in Ngawurua with my two brothers, she always used to say to me, go with the flow, son. And I'm going to go with the flow. Who knows whether I'll be here post-2025. You never know how this may end up coming back. And then some big shadow, 167 Ks, may be back after. Yes, I've lost weight. So look, I just wanted to, may end up coming back after the 2025. We have missed this opportunity, and I know that the people that I have been spoken to and also listened to on the 2nd of December, they are also noting the people who had voted this down. Kia ora.
Councillor Henderson, please.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll be quick. But yeah, a sad and disappointing day as well. Just acknowledging Councillor Filipaina and also our Tauhenere down the back, I think David Taipati as well. I was on the working group with you guys last term, working on this. Last term, right? And here we are, and we're going to be delaying again, right? I'm in a real bind with this situation here because I want us to deal with this at the next available opportunity which this resolution allows. So that's cool. But it says here that the plain words of the resolution agree that further work is required to determine the appropriate arrangements for Māori. I don't agree with that. What more work could we do? We had the working group last term. You know, and as I said in my previous korero, this has been debated for decades. What more work do we need? What more work do we need to get people across the line on this? More? The other part is discussion with Māori and the Auckland public. And I'm all for that. I'm all for discussion and people having their democratic say, etc. But I've also been bombarded with over 1,000 emails recently. I think people get the message. I think people know that we're talking about it today. Look, and while I've got the floor, I'll apologise to my constituents that have been desperately trying to get a hold of me in things like flooding issues, things that they're desperate for help from their councillor for, that I haven't been able to get to their emails because I can't find them, you know. So people have the democratic right and they're using the democratic right, and that's all cool. I support all of that. But what more consultation do you need? What more work do you need? I don't know. So I don't know how I'm going to vote on this because I'm really in two minds. I want us to deal with it as quick as we can, though. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Henderson. I've got Councillor Ferry would like to speak.
Kia ora. I want to speak a little bit about the origin of this substantive. So at an earlier point, so I chair the Joint Governance Working Party, and that Joint Governance Working Party is currently undertaking what's called the Representation Project, which means we are doing both the required 6-yearly representation review, which amongst other things looks at wards, and we're also doing a reorganisation proposal potentially, which looks at local boards. And so originally I thought this might be quite an elegant solution to put this Māori seats work into that discussion so that it could all be looked at as a whole, and that does seem to have been a barrier for some of my colleagues today in getting across the line with the amendment, that they wanted to look at it holistically. Well, I don't think we did need to look at it holistically. I thought we had enough information already. I did see this as a way forward. However, that was when I thought that it would take effect for 2025. And now I'm feeling less supportive of this, although, you know, as Councillor Henderson has said, support the intent to do this as soon as possible. I don't agree that further work is required beyond that consideration of how it fits in the whole ward structure, which is actually quite simple and which we could have done if we'd supported the amendment. I do just want to, and I appreciate the Mayor and his office for working on what I originally thought was going to be a useful way forward. But I do just want to point out there's a little bit of an anomaly. Well, there's a large anomaly here, actually. We have to vote on this by the 23rd of November 2023. Sorry, we had to vote yes or no to Māori wards. However, for all the other wards and for all the local boards, tweaking of boundaries, renaming things, changing the number of councillors, changing, we could go to, 25 people elected at large across the city. The deadline is September next year. So why, and I guess this is a question for central government really, but rhetorically put today, why is it that Māori wards are treated differently from general wards and from local boards and from local board boundaries and all of those issues? And I cannot help but see that as a continuation of a system which seeks to put Māori down. And I cannot support that. I don't know yet if I'm going to vote for this or abstain or vote against. I'm going to listen to the debate. But that inconsistency really concerns me, and I worry that if my colleagues feel, oh well, we'll do it next time, we'll just have the same debate again next time. We've missed an opportunity, and I acknowledge Matua Filipaina for his kōrero and his leadership on this over many years. And I acknowledge Whaia, can I call you Whaia? You're younger than me, so I probably can't. I acknowledge my benchmate, Councillor Leone, who I know has been really passionate in pursuing this term. This may be a second best. I don't know if I can support second best, but I'll keep listening and keep thinking. Thank you.
Councillor Leone, and then at some stage I will speak as the person who put this up and hopefully answer some of your questions, Councillor Ferry.
Kia ora. Look, I just want to reiterate the sentiments of Councillor Filipaina that it is a really sad day for Māori. When we reflect on this opportunity over the next 3 years and know that we could have actually made a significant difference today, by putting it, supporting this resolution, which of course I had also thought about supporting as well, it just makes me reflect on the fact that it's just a huge loss for our city to know that it's been so close, that original vote, to be only 2 votes shy, and now we're going to have to put it off for another 3 years. Basically, that's what this amendment is doing. But I do want to acknowledge the Mayor's office for trying to put this forward, to look at an alternative. And I do want to reiterate the fact that we should at least have the Independent Māori Statutory Board membership on the Working Party, because, again, we're not being consistent with Māori representation even at that level. So if that's one thing that we could achieve through this resolution by having IMSB on that Working Party and having a voice in that next part of the decision-making process, then that is a positive for Māori. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you very much. Councillor Darby, please. Councillor Fuli after that, and then I might speak unless there's a queue.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm probably using this speaking opportunity to pose some questions to you, because I'm a little bit troubled by your abstention on the earlier motion. And I think your words were, it's not top of my list or not top 5 of my list. I'm worried that anything beyond 5 might be getting your abstention in the future. But look, I'll leave you to explain your abstention there, but then moving this. There's a disconnect there for me.
I'm complicated.
It is complicated. I'll let you explain, but it appears like there's no leadership on the first, but now you are leading on something that you're not really treating as important work. I think it does need explanation when your speaking turn comes.
Councillor Foley and Councillor Bartley, please.
Kia ora, thank you, Chair. I share the same sentiments as Councillor Ferry and Councillor Henderson. I'm not quite sure how I will vote because I agree too that we've done so much work on this topic. We've had 2 governing body resolutions that have supported Māori wards. We've advocated to the government to change. We advocated to Parliament to change the law to allow us to do it. If that hadn't been the case, the Māori seats would have been in already in time for the 2022 elections. But we just didn't have the ability to do it under the current parliamentary model. So we advocated for that change to Parliament and we got it. And now here we are and we've lost that opportunity. And again, I echo what others have said. It is a sad day for Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, and it's a sad day for our country, especially when we all consider that half of the councils around the country have already ushered in Māori seats. And yes, the sky has not fallen, the earth has not fallen away. We are still here and we are thriving and even doing better. So I'm not sure how I will vote on this, and I will listen carefully to the debate. I do want us to move forward. I wish that date said the 22nd of November 2023, but it doesn't. So, and I doubt that that's going to be amended. So I'm not quite sure, but I do support us finding a way forward, and I commend you for that, Your Worship, and I know that that's probably why you've put that there, to try to find a way forward, knowing, perhaps, having read the room, how that vote was going to go. I just want to leave us all with a thought as well, because this weekend there is going to be a very important match that probably the whole of Aotearoa New Zealand is going to watch, and other New Zealanders around the world. And when our team, the All Blacks, get up to do their haka, I know every New Zealander is going to feel the wairua, they're going to feel that spirit, they're going to feel that fervour, they're going to echo the words, the Māori words of that haka. And as a nation, we will stand together with our team on that field. I just wish that as a nation, we could have stood together on issues like this. Kia ora. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Foley. Councillor Bartley, please.
Oh, thank you. I just want to speak to this. Ngāti Whātua Rākei, 183 years since Auckland land was gifted. If it wasn't for Māori, we wouldn't even have an Auckland. So I just think, wow, how easily we forget. Rōpōtaka Marae is the Marae Mai area, and they did not say in their submissions, kick it down the road. They said supporting Māori votes, supporting parliamentary model. If we can't get to the Royal Commission, then parliamentary on our way to Royal Commission. So I'm not going to accept anything less than that. I'm not supporting this. I think we had the opportunity to get Māori seats to do the right thing by the 2025 election, and we threw it away. So anything less is anything less, and that is what this is. I think you can make yourself feel better and go back to your constituency and say, I'm not against Māori seats because I supported us looking at it later on. That is actually saying you don't support Māori seats because you had the chance right now to put Māori seats in and you didn't take it. So yeah, in terms of your vote, Mayor, abstention, you got to stand for something. If you don't stand for something, then you're standing for nothing. So I hope you address that like what Councillor Darby said. Thank you.
Councillor Dalton.
Thank you. I just want to explain why